Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be here in the beautiful village of Glentees. I have to admit it's my first visit to Glentees, but I have visited Donegal on many occasions. I think I've played nearly every golf course in the county, and I look forward to playing in Nairn and Portneuf tonight and Bundoran tomorrow. So yes, great to be here at the confluence of the two glens and the place where Brian Friel once called the stage. I'm honoured to join this distinguished gathering of thinkers and commentators, and thank you, Joe, for the invitation. Well, I have to say, if I'm looking a little bit groggier than normal today, it's because I flew in from Heathrow last night and I drove up and we got here way past, close to midnight. And I can really second the thoughts of the previous speakers. It's time that road got a lot better and people were able to make much faster progress. I live in the southeast now, and it revolutionised travel when the M9 was built. It made such a difference, such a difference to quality of living. But actually, if I'm looking groggier than normal, it's because when I went to bed, the person in the room beside me, who I don't know, they must have been watching CNN at full volume. So I got to hear Donald Trump's acceptance speech at 1:30. As you can imagine, I then had a disturbed sleep. Because when I woke up, the same person decided to listen to it again. So I got to hear it. At 8:30. So I was thinking, now how do you start the day after a wave of negativity of that nature? An apocalyptic vision of a world that I hope many of us don't recognise. But I said, he was talking about making America great again, and so I said I'd keep it positive and say, Donegal doesn't have to be made great again. Donegal is great. Yeah. So I speak to you today as a technology guy rather than artist, thinker, or indeed commentator. But actually, I've always felt that those who work in the technology sector have a lot to learn from artists, especially those who free themselves up to imagine a world not just how it is, but how it can be. Thinking back to MacGill, writing in the early 20th century about social conditions in Donegal, his words shaped by what he saw: immigration, poverty, war and inequality. Sadly, issues still very much relevant around the world today. And of course, much of Friel's work focuses on a sense of people being marginalised, the feeling that the main events are happening somewhere else and being dictated by other people. So in some respects, it seems that the urban-rural divide has always been with us. It's ironic that for all the progress over the recent years, it seems we've arrived at a point where our rural citizens are feeling increasingly marginalised and overlooked. Of course, urbanisation is a worldwide trend. It's not going to slow down, but it does feel like we have a great opportunity in Ireland to strike a better balance between urban and rural quality of life. Today I will share some perspectives on the digital society with you and the role technology has in helping to bridge the perceived and actual inequality gap. Because I really believe that improved broadband and connectivity links can make a difference to rural development, particularly in areas such as Donegal, which has been described, I think, aptly there as sometimes an island on the island of Ireland. I speak from experience because during the week I actually I live in Sandymount. I must be one of that national elite that John mentioned. It doesn't feel like it though. And I get to enjoy, ultra high speed broadband, Virgin Media, of course. But then at the weekend I go to Kilkenny, where my actual house is in rural Kilkenny, and I get the pleasure of going from 360 megabyte broadband to 3 megabyte broadband, which is provided by the national incumbent telecom company. And actually I can see how difficult it is to get your job done then, to go from where you can download documents and do all the things you need to do online, search for information in a nanosecond, and to revert to 3 megabyte broadband. I can see that, it must be very difficult to run a small business or stay connected when you're receiving services of that nature. So I can readily agree that our topic today, rural development, should be and must be part of a national strategic plan. And although I would preface that by saying it would be good to have a national strategic plan that is being implemented, my own observation would be that we've had many such plans, most of which have never been implemented, or worse, they've been altered and watered down to render the end results unrecognisable from the original plan. Virgin Media is at the heart of Ireland's digital connectivity efforts. We're a communications company providing services that create value and positive results for consumers and business. Personally speaking, I'm very proud of the services that Virgin provides here in Ireland and the positive difference we make to our customers' lives. We were the first to offer high-speed broadband, and we value our obligation to give customers innovative products and services that meet their increasing demands for ever more connectivity. Of course, that's our commercial mandate. We're in business to make money. But in that mandate, I do believe there is a deep social dimension too. Virgin Media believes that digital capability has the power to make good things happen for people, communities and business. Digital technology is a tool for positive disruption, a force for good and a way to change the world for the better. Global advances in technology are revolutionising how we live and work. The contribution of technology to sustainable development is immense. It's connecting communities and markets, enabling communication and trade between once isolated places on the map, provides access to the global supply chain and helps improve the division of labour. Technology creates scale so that information is shared faster and across national boundaries. Technology is at the heart of the entertainment industry, helping people to connect with lifestyle, economic, political and cultural content. It's establishing communities of interest through social networking platforms, facilitating social activism, coalition building and the free exchange of good ideas. Technology forms an integral part of our lives, connecting us to our loved ones, to colleagues, to business, to jobs, to sales, to information, helps us fall in love, fall out of love, access new music, shop online, to study and even to find Pokemons. And I thought I was going to be the first person to ever mention Pokemon from the MacGill stage, but actually somebody beat me to the punch on Tuesday. So, Joe, your summer school is now at the leading edge of digital adoption. And of course, it's not all good in the digital revolution, and many of us would say there are some downsides. Particularly, I remember being on holiday last year in Italy, and there was a family of 6, and the whole family, mother, father, and 4 children, spent the whole dinner looking at smartphones from starter through to dessert. And I was just thinking, what a sad use of the technology that is. So there are downsides, always on electronic activity, people slaves to their smartphones, distracted lifestyles, angry online trollers and commentators, usually anonymous, parental concerns about what children are accessing. But I do believe, there's no doubt, the positives hugely outweigh the negatives many times over. Here in Ireland, it's clear that progress in digital adoption has been piecemeal and that rural Ireland is not well served in terms of broadband and, to a lesser extent, mobile coverage. In MacGill's time, physical location was everything, and living in rural communities often meant a life of subsistent farming. It doesn't have to be that way now. The world, I know it's a cliché, but it is getting smaller. We're now in the age of convergence, as described by Jeffrey Sachs from New York's Columbia University. This convergence has been enabled and driven by technology. Countries and communities are now able to integrate into national and global markets much more easily. The growth and the take-up of technology, driven by innovation and more affordable access, is fuelling productivity and raising national incomes. And I truly believe few countries are better placed than Ireland to benefit from digital technology, particularly in underinvested, underpopulated rural communities that have already been mentioned by the previous speakers. I see two of the most critical aspects of addressing the digital divide are education and connectivity. In relation to education, we commissioned Virgin Media research with Amora Consulting, and our Digital Insights report found that schools should place more emphasis on digital skills, with 71% saying that applies to primary schools and 86% saying it applies to secondary schools. I note with interest that the debate is back on the agenda now about computer coding appearing on the syllabus. We believe it's essential that our young people are exposed to a general syllabus that reflects how we live today, although I do note that changes to the syllabus and how we deliver education have proved tortuous in the past. But really, the syllabus has to reflect the modern lifestyle that our pupils and the modern workplace that our pupils will be heading out into. The effort to exploit technology should be truly collective and will benefit everybody. Virgin Media, and indeed the wider telecommunications industry, wants to be a partner with government and the many others who have a stake in how our society develops. In this regard, Virgin works with certain partner organisations such as the much esteemed Coder Dojo that help children discover science and innovation. These clubs offer amazing opportunities for kids to become creators or innovators of future technology which can benefit society. For example, at this year's Coder Dojo Annual Awards, there was a young national school girl named Ellen who designed an app, a technology app called Red Alert, which allows a guardian to remain in touch with those in their care and monitor their movements. I mean, it's science fiction for many of us to imagine that children in their early teens would be working on such worthy technology subjects when we think back to our time in national school or secondary school. Earlier this summer, the government published research commissioned from economic consultants Indicon on the macroeconomic impact of digital activity. And the research found that 12 billion of Ireland's GDP is down to technology and digital innovation, and that's expected to expand to 21 billion by 2020. And also the digital economy currently supports almost 116 direct and indirect jobs, with 70,000 of those directly linked to digital. We know from economists like the University of California's Enrico Moretti, author of The New Geography of Jobs, that innovation and technology diversifies economies, quote, creates new industries, jobs and economic activities. These new jobs in turn create demand for more suppliers, and the rising income of workers prompts them to spend more in shops, hotels and restaurants in the local community, which is what it's all about in places like Glenties. With good broadband and connectivity, businesses can thrive anywhere in Ireland, including and most definitely, especially in rural areas, where businesses can take advantage of lower rents and a less overheated labour market. I mean, we've heard much about the over-reliance on Dublin there, and as a Dubliner who lives there, I can testify. I mean, if current growth rates continue, I mean, Dublin will be increasingly unbearable over the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, it's already maxed out. I'm driving from work the other night there, and I see the port tunnel is closed, and people spend 2 hours waiting for it to reopen in traffic when it's 26 degrees. And I think this is just a foretaste of what is to come. The country is fundamentally imbalanced in favour of Dublin. And I think, just echoing what John would say, a greater balance would significantly improve life in rural Ireland and actually make for a much more pleasant living experience in Dublin. When we consider Ireland's future at gatherings such as MacGill, we should recall our collective responsibility to improve Ireland for all our people. That means public and private sectors, decision makers in every level, working together to effect positive change. For this to happen, we require a strategy that is future-proofed, making sure we have all equal access to fast-speed broadband. We fully support the aims of the National Broadband Plan, which aims to connect every home and business in Ireland to at least 30 megabyte broadband speed between 2017 and 2022. And that's significantly ahead of many other European countries. For instance, the UK is planning to have just 95% of the population connected to a lower speed of 24 megs. By next year, the government expects to award the final contracts from the National Broadband Plan to the successful bidder, and although it's been criticised for long delays and much changes, the NBP, we believe, is a welcome strategy that will ensure the benefits of high-speed broadband will be enjoyed by citizens the length and breadth of the country. But the National Broadband Plan, we believe, is only the start of a shift in attitude by national and local authorities. For too long, the private sector has faced obstacles with respect to installing critical infrastructure that fuels Ireland's digital economy. These barriers have held back progress in a key area for strategic national growth. From planning logjams to varying requirements for ducting, from development levies to local road openings, private operators have often been frustrated in their efforts to provide sustainable, affordable, high-speed broadband to communities across the country. The snarl-up has been exacerbated by the Purple Book, a set of government-issued guidelines which imposes rules, often inconsistently applied, on operators for opening local roads. By way of comparison, the cost of compliance with the existing Purple Book has resulted in costs that are 20 to 25% higher in Ireland than directly comparable works in the UK. More worryingly, recent revisions proposed by the government of the Purple Book will increase these differentials in comparison with the UK to 47% for regional and local roads and up to 84% for national roads. Proposed revisions would have resulted in a shift from a 1-week to a 17-week delay in obtaining permission for a road licensing agreement. So if we're going to really have an effective national broadband plan and we finally get to a plan that we can execute, it would be a shame and indeed a tragedy if it was held up by over-stringent rules and platinum plating that will see it taking much longer than it needs to. So while we welcome recent remarks by the government that existing barriers will be tackled and proposed revisions to the said restrictions, change cannot come soon enough. Steps must be taken now to eliminate bottlenecks, smooth the path for the provision of vital services, and in particular local authorities and the government must align better so that there is no longer a disconnect between government and national policy and local policy. And let's acknowledge, I think Pádraig mentioned this, but let's acknowledge that many of the current issues affecting rural services such as transport, water and communications have been created by poor planning decisions. It's essential that coherent planning practices are put in place to avoid any repeat, especially now as economic growth returns and indeed accelerates. In the end, it's up to all of us to take collective steps to ensure Ireland's continued success as a global hub for digital innovation. The new pathways for progress, the infrastructure that connects our villages, towns and cities are every bit as important as the roads and railways that formed our transport network in the 19th and 20th centuries. However, failing to invest in critical communications networks or investing too slowly to be globally competitive will hold Ireland back. However, to be clear, I firmly believe we are at last getting things right in terms of overall policy, and I do believe that by working together we can achieve lasting advantage for all our citizens. I'll finish on that positive note, and I'd say if there is a new Brian Friel out there, I look forward to seeing a new canon of great work that reflects a changed Ireland. Working titles for new plays could be Silicon Valley, Here I Come, maybe Google Translations, who knows? But it would be good to know that an aspiring Irish playwright can live and indeed work as seamlessly in Glenties as they can anywhere else in this increasingly connected world of ours. Thank you very much.